I'm so honored to be here with all of you. My name is Jeong Bae. I'm a professor at Inje University in Korea and the chair of International Safe Community Research Center of Busan Metropolitan. Today, I will talking the new crisis management paradigm for future disaster preparation. Due to global warming, the scale of a global disaster is increasing and disaster becoming combined with one another. Thus, it is impossible to solve complex disaster only by one country or central government. Therefore, we use insight into our capabilities and factors that actually contribute to changes in resilience. Over the past 2 years, in response to the global COVID-19 pandemic, many countries around the world have implemented social distancing measures to contain the spread of the coronavirus. While the nation's administrative power and budget was focused on controlling COVID-19, the number of common accidents such as suicide, violence, and abuse was on the rise. This is not only what happened in Korea. We have witnessed similar situations around the globe. So, we have to identify the new disaster management paradigm model in the post-corona era. From now, I will describe about future crisis management paradigm for disaster preparation. The development of the new paradigm was based on the latest trends in international disaster and crisis management. When we bring together the disaster and crisis management principle of the UN, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Austria, and classify them into keywords, some common concepts include participation, cooperation, and responsibility of all members. There are 3 assumptions in discussing this topic. First, safe is a human right, but also to share responsibility. Second, understanding our past while taking control of the present is how to achieve the better future. And third, we can make a difference when we choose to work together, global collaboration. This model aligns with the UN Sustainable Development Goal. Safety is a fundamental right of a human being and precondition for the maintenance and improvement of health and welfare of any population. With global collaboration, we have to weave together best practice in the field of crisis and disaster safety management and evidence-based research. There are 3 evidence-based strategic keywords. First, the scientification of disaster and crisis management based on science and big data. Second, citizens lead safety culture program. And third, disaster and crisis management that combine artificial intelligence and ICT. In order to realize the scientification of the disaster and crisis management based on science and big data, we have to use big data on injury in line with the global paradigm of the fourth industrial revolution. In accordance with the law, every year in December, the Korean government announces 6 safety indices for community safety diagnosis and recommend the appropriate disaster management. Each local government can access to the National Injury Surveillance System. Second, we have to realize a citizens-led safety culture program. In the past, the Korean government safety program was done in the top-down manner, and the public simply accepted what the government had planned out. However, it is impossible to solve complex disasters only by the local governments. Therefore, We have to have urban resilience, and citizens should become active participants in order to protect their own safety. Third is a disaster safety management that combines artificial intelligence and ICT. We have entered into the fourth industrial revolution era. In particular, during the post-corona era, distance disaster management services based on ICT and artificial intelligence will be more effective. Our vision is empowering our society. We have to promote our resilience, inclusive global network. With our effort, we can create a better future for the world. This concludes my presentation. Once again, I really appreciate to speak today.
Hello. My warmest greetings to my many friends in South Korea. I am Dr. Janet Dilling, a professor in the Emergency Management and Homeland Security program at Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida. I am so delighted to be joining you today to talk very briefly about my paper topic entitled Tensions of Local Policy Formulation for Adaptation to Sea Level Rise. Now, certainly climate change and sea level rise are hot topics all over the world. Today, I'm going to talk briefly about some of the challenges facing the United States in particular surrounding these topics. And this is going to include like a special emphasis on planning or lack thereof for sea level rise in our country. Sea level rise is primarily a result of two factors as it related to climate change and global warming. And we're talking here about the water from melting ice sheets and glaciers, and also the expansion of seawater as it warms. Now, this is a looming crisis for us in the U.S. For example, it's projected by the end of the century, 6 feet of sea level rise would completely redraw much of the coastline of the eastern United States. Now, we have a lot of coastline in our country. And since lots of folks like living on or near the ocean, it's estimated that over 39% of the U.S. population, that's a lot, live in these coastal areas. And we're already having problems. It's reported that over 90 U.S. coastal cities are already experiencing like chronic flooding from our rising seas. And that number is expected to double by the year 2030. You know, our scientists estimate that approximately 13 million people in the United States could be forced to relocate due to rising sea levels by the year 2100. Now, despite all this gloomy news and these dire predictions, though very little is being done in most coastal communities to prepare for these conditions through active mitigation and adaptation measures. Now, one of the reasons this is a problem for us is that while most of the world there is widespread consensus that climate change and sea level rise are large threats facing our world. Unfortunately, here in the United States, we are still dealing with political and ideological tensions over the science of climate and even the terms themselves. As a result, realizing the political and popular support, which are both needed for effective climate policy, has been really a difficult task, especially for state and local emergency managers and the community planners with whom they should be working. So in our country, we seem to be burdened by the barrier of climate politics. A few years ago, another colleague of mine, Dr. Ralph Brower, another professor at FSU, and I started examining domestic political activity as it relates to global climate change and sea level rise. Now, we took a look at those political actions that kind of shape public policy for state and local emergency managers. And we even also included some routine and less visible organizational politics, which were present in their everyday work and as it related to those topics. And our study was comprised of surveys and interviews, and what it did was helped identify some of these catalysts and barriers to actually emergency managers actually preparing and planning for climate change.
Hello everyone. I would like to present the following topic, future directions for efficient operation of disaster management resources in the era of climate crisis. Main contents are as shown in the slide. Please refer to that slide. As you know well, recently, with the advent of the climate crisis, the intensity and the severity of natural disasters have increased, and the scale of damage has increased. Man-made disasters and technological disasters occur in various forms depending on regional characteristics. Large-scale disasters, such as Haiti's earthquake and Japan's biggest earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear reactor meltdown in 11th March 2011, happened suddenly and caused large casualties and significant damages to society. When a large-scale disaster occurs, immediate emergency responses are needed in order to save lives and relieve and control the damages. Due to the climate crisis, demographic and urban structural changes, and technological development, the occurrence of new types of disasters is increasing. The reliability of disaster prediction methods used in the past is declining. Because of the changes in the disaster environment, new disasters that were previously unpredictable are likely to occur more and more. While complex disasters that go beyond the distinction between natural and man-made disasters will occur, the scale and damage will become giant through the synergy of networking in which various disaster-causing factors are closely linked with each other. Thanks to high awareness of the importance of crisis management and sustainable development, and the efforts of the UN, NGOs, and governments of many countries, it has been found that humans effectively influence disaster vulnerability. Nevertheless, the number of people affected by disasters worldwide is still increasing, and the cost of disasters tend to increase more and more. In particular, poor countries are severely affected by disaster results, and the number of disasters that occur tend to increase year by year. According to the EOC, Emergency Operations Center installation standard, the United States has integrated logistics resource management, or designated and operates the separate disaster management resources, logistics center. Japan designates disaster prevention-based facilities and stores and manages disaster management resources on a regular basis. In case of a disaster, lots of various organizations respond by mobilizing disaster management resources. Especially in Korea, local governments separately stockpile and manage disaster management resources. However, there is a problem in that the resources required by local governments are insufficient, or resources are disproportionately stocked for each type of disaster. In addition, Related studies such as the efficient management and operation of disaster management resources, regional characteristics and disaster type for each local government are insufficient. So, the purpose of this study, I wanted to suggest the future directions for efficiently managing and operating disaster management resources to effectively respond to large-scale and diversified disasters, especially in the era of climate crisis. In order to achieve the purpose of the study, I intended to achieve a specific goal that presents the effective management and operation direction of disaster management resources from the point of view of rigor, technical, operation, and management, and so on. For a long time, lots of climate experts and environmentalists around the world have argued for the beginning of the climate crisis era. Just now, the climate crisis has only become a reality. The climate crisis is approaching us, and we are living with it. The US National Academy of Sciences first warned of impending global warming in a historic report in 1979. And the head of the NASA Climate Research Division, James Hansen, famously declared, "Global warming is here," in a congressional hearing in 1988. The same year, the World Meteorological Organization founded the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. Since then, an incredible wealth of scientific data on global warming has been collected. At this moment, in the 21st century, no one will question the trustfulness of whether the climate crisis is real. Even arguing that there is no climate crisis is also very pointless and meaningless. Mankind has been aware of the potential for changes in climate for over a century. The current climate situation, which has gone beyond the threshold climate change and turned into a climate crisis, has a serious adverse effect on natural disasters. Heavy rain, typhoon, torrential rain, drought, heavy snow, heat wave and cold wave, which we commonly call climate disasters, are more severe in scale due to climate crisis. Now, it is really causing serious damage that cannot be prevented by the power of science and technology in human society. Large-scale climate disasters are causing large-scale man-made or critical infrastructure paralysis disasters. For example, a super typhoon with more than 1,000 millimeters of precipitation per day can cause dams to collapse, power outage, road loss, tunnels collapsing, destroying the lives and property of citizens. Natural disasters do not simply appear as natural disasters, but cause man-made disasters or critical infrastructure paralysis disasters. This could also lead to other problems, such as the spread of infectious diseases, shortages for food, and paralysis of information communication technology. Due to the climate crisis, we have to live our daily lives with disasters. Planning, mobilizing, and using resources needed for disaster management whenever a disaster occurs does not help disaster management. Rather, there are many parts that are inefficient and wasteful. Therefore, for effective disaster management, it is desirable to stock up and mobilize resources necessary for disaster management on a regular basis and to prevent a or reduce the scale of disaster management. The resource mobilization system of the United States, NIMS, National Incident Management System, is very similar to the DRSS of Korea, Disaster Resource Sharing System. This kind of system connects standardized resource management, such as resource inventory, organization, and tracking, to efficient sharing and integration of important regional resources. Through this, the entire management process, including resources and requirements, ordering, movement, tracking, recovery, and reimbursement, is connected from the initiation of a disaster to response and recovery. And EMAC, Emergency Management Assistance Compact, has a system to mobilize resources in the event of a disaster through prior consultation between neighboring regions. In the event of a disaster, when the resources of the affected area are exhausted and the federal government's support is insufficient, there has to be a mutual aid agreement in advance to quickly provide manpower and equipment to help with disaster mitigation. In Korea, the challenging tasks that appear in efficiently operating and managing disaster management resources are as follows. First, it is necessary to present the effective operation and management plan of DMR in detail in the Crisis Management Manual. As a result of analyzing the operation status of the Domestic Crisis Management Manual, the current manual is being established based on the type of disaster. The Crisis Management Manual assigns roles for each stage of crisis alert according to the tasks under the jurisdiction of each institution, and only specifies general roles for crisis management activities focusing on the main functions of each institute or organizations. Therefore, it is necessary to suggest methods and procedures, logistics, transportation, distribution, and so on, to efficiently manage and operate DMR. Second, it is necessary to advance the risk assessment for each type of natural disaster and to prepare a risk map. As a result of evaluating the risk by type of natural disaster for 228 cities, counties, and districts in Korea, the risk of heavy rain and typhoons increased by 7 to 9%, and the risk of heavy snow and strong winds decreased by 11 to 14%. As such, in the case of natural disasters, it is necessary to link with the management and operation efficiency measures of the essential disaster management resources by upgrading the risk assessment. Third, it is necessary to derive the essential resources for each type of disaster through the analysis results of major domestic and overseas disaster cases. For example, a total of 259 social disasters occurred between 1996 and 2019, of which 76 social disasters occurred after 2016. As a result of analyzing the disaster yearbook from 2016 to 2019, the main types of social disasters are fire, collapse, explosion, traffic accident, infectious disease, and finally, livestock epidemic. Of the 15 disaster types, only these 6 types accounted for 97% of all social disasters. It was analyzed that risk and exposure of fires, wildfires, and livestock infectious disease have a high rate of increase. The probability of occurrence of collapse, explosions, marine ship accidents, and infectious disease increased. But the rate of increase in the scale of damages was low. Fourth, it is necessary to link the stockpile management plan of disaster management resources with the current DRSS resource information. Currently, the disaster management resource stockpile plan records the resources possessed by direct agencies, related organizations, and private organizations that have signed agreements. However, there are cases where the DRSS does not include the resource stockpiling status of related organizations. As a result, there is a discrepancy between the stockpile management plan and the DRSS. In order to solve this problem, it is necessary to include the current resource stockpiling status of related organizations by supplementing the data on the disaster resources sharing system stockpile using the data of the disaster management resource stockpile plan. Fifth, there is a problem that the current stockpiling of disaster management resources is mainly focused on the management of natural disasters, such as wind, flood damage. Therefore, resources necessary to manage social disasters, such as a fire, building collapse, gas or another explosion, traffic accident, infectious disease, and the livestock epidemic, must have been identified and secured. It is required to revise the scope of designated resources to more encompass social disaster management. Sixth, in the event of a large-scale disaster, it is necessary for private companies with goods and services to provide disaster management resources quickly and efficiently in connection with civil society organizations. It is necessary for private companies, corporations, and NGOs to form and operate networks. By utilizing the supply chain of private companies, it is desirable to overcome the limitations of government support system and provide incentives to private companies. While it is desirable to select a private company as a supplier of disaster management resources, it is necessary to share and link information to maintain a close collaboration system. At the time of the 2016 Kumamoto earthquake in Japan, the Japanese government was systematic but slow, and it was difficult for companies to select support targets. And it was difficult to obtain information on disaster areas that change in real time. Accordingly, in August 2016, 17 companies and 6 nonprofit organizations launched and are operating the SEMA, Social Emergency Management Alliance. Seventh, in order to efficiently manage and operate disaster management resources, it is necessary to upgrade disaster status data and data. Currently, data from disaster yearbook, forest fire statistical yearbook, chemical safety information sharing system, environmental statistics yearbook, and statistical data on metropolitan cities and provinces are used here. In the future, it is necessary to organize and upgrade the data, such as the name of the disaster, the duration of the disaster, the area where it occurred, the operation organization of the countermeasure headquarters, the scale of human and property damage, the amount of damage, and the organization and period of mobilization of disaster management resources. In order to achieve efficient operation of future disaster management resources in Korea, active disaster management policies of the central and local government are needed. The budget and manpower must be secured, so the local governments have a series of disaster management functions ranging from disaster prevention to post-recovery. It is appropriate for the central government to allocate roles in such a way that it coordinates, evaluates, and provides support for tasks dispersed in each department. In addition, it should be recognized that active citizen participation in disaster management, which has been passive in the past, is the basis for advanced disaster management in the 21st century. It is desirable for the government to provide support for citizens to secure independent awareness and defense capabilities against various types of disasters, and for residents to actively suggest and implement the direction of disaster management policy decisions. First, it is necessary to unify the definition of DMR in Korea's disaster management legal system. DMR means disaster management resources. Currently, the Framework Act on Disaster and Safety Management defines disaster management resources as equipment, materials, and resources. The regulations on the classification and the system use of disaster management resources define DMR as manpower, equipment, materials, and resources. The regulations for the joint use of disaster management resources define DMR as resources, equipment, manpower, and so on. In the current legal system, it is necessary to reduce the confusion of terms due to the differences in the list of disaster management resources. Therefore, there is a position that it is necessary to define DMRs as equipment, materials, resources, facilities, manpower, including manpower and facilities. In the future, it is necessary to reset the categories of DMRs in order to secure the joint utilization and operational efficiency of DMRs. DMR should include information resources, public-private partnership resources, and the international humanitarian and resources, together with existing resources such as personnel or manpower, facilities, equipment, materials, and resources. Second, among natural disasters, the risk of typhoons and heavy rain is high in most regions of Korea. Heavy snow was found to have a high risk of damage in the west coast and some east coast areas. On the other hand, in the case of social disasters, fires were found to be at high risk in Seoul, Gyeonggi, Daegu, and other human accidents in Seoul, Gyeonggi, Gangwon were found to have a high risk of damage in metropolitan areas. Therefore, it is necessary to stock up and manage disaster management resources preferentially in areas where the risk of damage is high by type of natural and social disasters. And in areas with moderate risk of damage, it is judged that the maintenance and management of resources is important to prevent the spread of disaster damage. Third, disaster management is difficult for the governments alone to operate or manage. In particular, today's disasters are characterized by their high intensity, large scale, and severe damage that is difficult to compare with the past in terms of the intensity, scale, and degree of damage. Lots of companies in the private sector fail to prepare for disasters and suffer significant losses or even go bankrupt. However, in order to effectively respond to disasters, it is necessary not only to strengthen the government's capacity, but also to establish a public-private cooperation or collaboration network and establish a regional disaster prevention base. To this end, it is necessary to secure an activity base such as first, prompt, and necessary manpower. That is, agreements with volunteer workers and private companies. Second, agreements with private companies for material procurement and transportation. And the third, regional disaster prevention bases. It is also needed to prepare a global disaster response cooperation system and the joint utilization system for international disaster management resources. Fourth, it is necessary to establish a network for mobilization and management of disaster management resources. Mobilizing and managing the necessary resources whenever disaster occurs should be carried out throughout the entire period of disaster management. Resources needed after a disaster include necessities directly related to life, such as food and drink, energy, medicine, and recovery resources. It is essential to prepare measures for securing and delivering these essential materials because it is difficult to obtain food and drink for a few days immediately just after a disaster. For efficient operation of disaster management resources between countries, airports, civil aviation ports, transport stations, trucks, railways, and resource storage should be considered together. Fifth, it is necessary to prepare a space for collecting, managing, distributing DMRs in one place. In Texas State, United States, together with Texas A&M University, they are operating an exhibition experience, education, and training center that shows the disaster management or disaster damage situation as it is, what problems there are, how they were managed, and what materials should be used. Citizens, civil servants, researchers, and crisis management practitioners are learning lessons from the disaster case park named Disaster City. Thank you so much for your attention.